Welcome to the Natural History Cupboard. Come on in.
And welcome back to the Natural History Cupboard podcast, the place where the weird and wonderful parts of the natural world come together. I'm your host, Gareth, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Aaron.
Hello.
And joining us all the way from north of the wall. That's not at all because we were just talking Game of Thrones. But welcome back to the show, Lindsey Kinsella.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
That's all right.
Thanks for coming in.
The question is, what have you been up to this week?
This week, absolutely nothing. I've been on holiday and I've written not a single word, which has been delightful. But I will get back on the train this week. But yeah, prepping for this. I'm excited.
That's good.
We were just talking about your latest book that was released on Halloween last year. How's that one going?
It's going really well. Yeah, feedback has been good, which is always anytime you release a book here. I need some new pants anytime a new review comes through, and so far they've been good. So that's all I need, just validation from strangers.
I think you have a shirt that I think is relevant to your book actually, which you might like.
All right.
It's more of a play on Jaws, but still, I think it kind of works. So I don't know if I'm lifting that up.
No,
That's good. Yeah. Although that is funny because the inspiration for the ship name came from Jaws, because in Jaws the ship's called the Orca because the orca eats sharks.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, by that same logic, a whaling ship should be something that eats whales, and obviously Leviathan was a whale that ate whales. So I thought Megalodon was too obvious.
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, you could have gone with calling it like the Gerald, because, humans eat whales.
This
Wouldn't have had the same
Bob.
impact. The Burt.
The bird. Who Bert?
So, well, Aaron, what have you been up to this week?
I've had a super productive week. It's been real good fun. I went out looking for, first and foremost, a lot of family time, which has been good over the weekend.
Yeah.
We went to the beach, got rained off, but still managed to see a lot of birds that I've not really appreciated before, like stone chats. By the way, I've decided that I'm going to call birding, I'm going to call it dinoing now, because the previous generations have called it twitching, and the modern generations kind of call it birding, and I feel neither really do the job of dragging in tomorrow's generation. So I think if you call it dinoing or dinosauring, you're still telling the truth, but you're kind of wrapping it in a more exciting kind of image. So I think it will. I think it will catch on. But yeah, I've almost
You're going to turn it into a hashtag then.
Yeah, hashtag dinoing. I've almost finished. I've got all the I've got the sheets cut for the van. So the floor, I will have installed the floor probably by the end of this week, midweek next week. The only thing that I set out to do this week that I couldn't do in the end was see adders. And that's because I got down the beach on time, like in the dunes, to see them. But like loads of people were also going to the beach, so they all trampled over the dunes to get down onto the beach. So the adders went in, and then just as everything quietened down, it rained, and so all of them came back off the beach. And so if any adders were thinking of coming out, they certainly didn't after that. So yeah, it's been an exciting week. Just a shame that I still haven't seen an adder.
Yeah, well, the only thing I've been able to do this week, I've been able not to see any adders. I've also been looking as well, unsuccessfully, based on the amount of dog walkers and just general people. Managed to see a slow one, which was nice big gravid female one. Apart from that, lots of other birds. Managed to see loads of skylarks, which is a really cool bird that, as far as I'm aware, I've not come across before. It's one of those ones I can't remember if I have encountered them before or haven't.
Yeah.
So skylarks, definite highlight of the week. And
that was the day after I saw skylarks down Woolacombe.
yes,
So yeah.
And managed to take my son down to Crow Point. In the first thing in the morning. We were literally the first ones down there. We saw a heron, some egrets, Canada geese, nice big obvious birds for a 4-year-old to be able to spot. So he saw those. We didn't see much else. We drew some pictures in the sand and then went home and got cake. So
Not very
not
good.
bad.
Not bad at all.
Well, we should probably explain what we're doing this week, because there is 3 of us. And essentially, we are doing our spring special. We started last year doing a spring special. This year we are doing it. And Lindsey is kindly come on to talk about one of our creature features, which we'll jump into now, I think, shall we?
It's the creature feature.
Okay, well, we're into our creature features for this, spring special. So Aaron is going to start things off. So what is your spring species, Aaron?
Well, I'm not one for doing too many plant-based creature features. I kind of rely on your far sturdier interest in them to pepper the odd species throughout each season. Season of the podcast, I mean, obviously. But for my part of this episode celebrating spring, I've chosen to take a brief look into what is inarguably the UK's favourite flower, though not actually mine. So beloved is this conqueror of the woodland understory that it dominates popularity polls across the UK as it would a forest floor. To the point that when polled to find a national favourite flower for each of the 4 countries of the UK, the surveyors banned those being quizzed from answering with the bluebell. Yes, because it's so popular, and they wanted to doctor the survey so that it didn't come out on top in every country.
Well, that's just democracy at work there.
There we go. And yes, that's the flower that I'm looking at today. The bluebell is a perennial plant, perennial meaning through the year. As a bulbous flower, they exist underground, storing energy ready for their time to shine. And this bulb essentially acts like a battery, pulling in nutrients and converting this and storing it as energy. Now, this energy reserve is primarily composed of carbohydrates and water, which provide the plants with everything they'll need to sprout and eventually disperse seeds. But one advantage of this energy storage strategy is that it allows for periods of dormancy lasting the best part of a year. So whilst you may not notice any sign of bluebells being present, they are home, but essentially taking a long nap underground. This is all to say that being bulbous gets these plants through the harshest while weather can sling at them. As spring winds on, shoots pierce through the surface of the forest floor, which it could be quite a thick substrate of both soil and leaf litter, considering where they tend to exist in these ancient forests, and they point directly up as they grow. It's at this time that if you are observant, you'll begin to see their shoots resemble a carpet across the woodland floor. As April turns to May, the flowers open, and it's during this time that the plant becomes a rich source of sustenance for invertebrates, with the humble bumblebee being their primary pollinator. This is, for many UK residents, a sign that spring is in full swing, and the relief of summer is just around the corner. Now, for those of you guys who don't live in the UK, for our listeners and viewers who are from outside the UK, I will just briefly sum up for your education how seasons work here in the UK. So we have roughly a 9-month season called the cold monsoon season, in which we are subject to perpetual merciless rain. A particularly British signature rain is the misty rain that gets you more wet than a heavy deluge. This is followed by a 2-month sporadic summer season, in which staycationers can be observed doing sun dances to ensure favourable conditions for their trips to the Devonian and Cornish coastline. The season is known for having about 2 days of sun for every week of rain, and that rain is slightly warmer than the cold monsoon rains you get in what other places in the world would call winter. And then the final season is in this cycle is a month-long golden tree season, which witnesses the breakneck speed at which UK plants here turn gold, then brown, and then drop their leaves altogether, ready for the precipitation onslaught that is to come. So yeah, that is essentially a year in the life of UK residents. Now, it is in fact a credit to the UK populace that no one actually drowns by just breathing the air here. Anyway, back to the plant. The plant during the flowering period has lost its motivation for reaching to the sun. It's no longer straight. Those straight blades that you saw in the young stems now droop lazily over under the weight of their eye-catching flower. The stem is adorned by 3 to 6 linear leaves stretching roughly about 1.6 centimeters. That's 0.63 inches for you guys across the pond. And it ends with an unmissable flower assemblage. Up to 12 flowers can make up the grouping, also known as an inflorescence, and it's arranged to one side in a nodding-like fashion. This arrangement is also known as a racemoid. I think I've pronounced that properly. Each flower can grow up to 2 centimeters or 0.79 inches in length and has up to 6 petal-like tepals, which curve strongly backwards at their tips. The flower's tepals are violet in color, whereas the pollen is cream-colored and the seeds are black. It's worth noting that this description fits our native species, the common bluebell. The Spanish forest floor Inquisition have their own variety that has not only been introduced to the British Isles, but has coupled with our native species to produce hybrids. The Spanish variety retain their straight upward growth through the flowering stage, never drooping. They also have lighter hues to their tepals and blue-coloured pollen, as opposed to the cream. Now, the hybrids, on the other hand, they are actually in appearance an intermediary between the two species. Now, after the flowering stage comes to an end, the plant develops a seed pod that will open to ship seeds out, either by wind freight or animal freight, to basically spread the species further. And these seeds will eventually find their spot, germinating and forming new bulbs. These will take up to about 7 years to mature. Sometimes it can a little bit more. They say about 4 to 7 years, but it takes up to 7 years before they first flower. But when they do flower, they carpet ancient woodlands in a sea of purplish blue that is enjoyable to walk amongst, though try not to walk on them. Now, speaking of ancient woodlands, where indeed you can find these little blue friends of ours, they are typically a deciduous woodland species, preferring ancient woodland with acidic soil. That's by far their niche. But they are hardy and they are adaptable, often being found in the shelter of invasive Japanese knotwood, for example, or even more frequently in small patches on hedgerows along the side of rural roads, which I found in droves after we spent our entire day looking for them in the forest.
Always the way.
Yeah, but that essentially is a very brief kind of creature feature overview of the bluebell. It is, I said it wasn't my favorite flower, and it's not, but
what is your favorite flower?
I don't know, but I usually tend to go for daffodils. I know that they're pretty basic and stuff, but what I've always said is that they're the harbinger of summer. Like, they're the first, before you get the good weather, the daffodil comes out and tries to mimic the sun with its bright yellow kind of.
Lemon snowdrops are like the first sort of proper flowers that are, breaking through January, February time. So
yeah. No, I do. I think it, off the top of my head, it would have to be a daffodil, I think.
What about you, Lindsay? What's your favourite flower?
Does heather count as a flower, and is that too much of a stereotype?
I don't think so. And yeah, I think it is a flower. It's certainly got little flowers on it.
Yeah,
that's a nice one.
I like heather.
I was going to say, I don't think we've got. Well, I suppose there's heather up on Exmoor.
There is heather on Exmoor. Yeah.
Oh, I suppose I should think of one for myself. I don't actually. I can't. This is really bad. I don't like flowers that much. This is really bad. You know what? I'm going to go dandelions.
Dandelions. Oh, yeah.
They're out. They're one of those first plants that are out as well. They're good bee food. And I just really like annoying people that seem to want to cut their lawns straight away.
Good bee food, good food for your rabbit, good food for
tortoises.
For tortoises, yeah. And you can use them as well yourself. They're edible. Bit of a bitter taste, apparently.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want to eat them too much. But I mean, we've got halfway decent like vegetables we can eat. If the
But
year
you have
keeps
to
going the way
respect a
it is,
dandelion.
yeah, dandelion and burdock. There you go. I'll make some of that out of it. Right. Well, I think Lindsay, you've got our next spring species. So what have you got us?
I do indeed. So we're traveling back in time a little for this one, 70 odd million years. We're going to talk about possibly the greatest injustice in paleontological history. This is Oviraptor.
Nice.
Now, some of you will have images, I'm sure, but we'll paint a little picture just in case. It's quite small by dinosaur standards, was Oviraptor, about the size of a turkey. So that whole Jurassic Park scene, imagine a 6 foot, just imagine a turkey-sized turkey, and you're pretty much there. Give it some dexterous arms, dexterous fingers, long tail, and you have an Oviraptor, pretty much. One of the best demonstrations of the link between birds and traditional theropod dinosaurs. I think if you were to propose just a Tyrannosaurus and a sparrow and say these two animals are related, you'd have a difficult time explaining that to someone who didn't really know much about evolution. If you plonk an Oviraptor in the middle of them both, you have a much easier time. But let's go on to that injustice. When Oviraptor was first discovered, it was discovered upon a nest. And that nest was assumed to be one of Protoceratops. So naturally, the assumption was that it was predating on those eggs. So it was named Oviraptor, and Oviraptor translates as egg thief. Not content to just name the genus egg thief, the entire family of animals was then named Oviraptorids, a whole family of egg thieves. Sometime later, we came across a relative of Oviraptor, Citipalti. Is that right?
I think it's Citipathy, yeah.
You can fact check me on that one later. I've probably pronounced that wrong. Also on a nest. However, it was quite obvious from this nest that it was not stealing those eggs. It was protecting those eggs. And now we know that Oviraptor was doing the same. So the injustice here is that the egg thief was not only not an egg thief, but it protected its nest, literally, with its life, and it has been slandered for years. And even until recently, what year was Jurassic World Dominion? 2 years ago? Something like that. Even that pictured an Oviraptor stealing an egg. It can't get away from the image. It's a good thing it's extinct, or it would sue. Rightfully so.
Yes.
I'm not bitter about it, I promise. So the world in which it lived in was pretty similar to where we found it. The Gobi Desert is quite a strange place in that it hasn't changed particularly much in 70 million years. So it effectively lived in the Gobi Desert as it is now. Interestingly, it shared that environment with some more well-known dinosaurs like Velociraptor and obviously Protoceratops. Some interesting interactions there, I'm sure, but not stealing eggs. I mean, maybe stealing eggs, but we don't think so. It seems more likely that it was predominantly herbivorous, although it is a matter for debate because it has a really weird mouth. It doesn't really have teeth. It has a beak like a bird, and it doesn't very closely match anything in the modern day. The closest we come is a parrot, so it was probably herbivorous. Yeah, I didn't prepare nearly as much information as you did about bluebells. But that's what
fair,
I have.
I think I went overboard because I wrote only a little bit, and then I was like, oh, I'm worried that this isn't enough now.
That's fair enough. But I've got to admit, I do think it is the biggest single injustice in the in the sort of paleo world, the fact that this animal and its entire family have been completely slandered since day one,
yes.
with just the taintedness of them being egg thieves and everything is and thinking about it, there's not a single bit of paleo media that you can't come across where it's not depicted with an egg in its
Egg in
hand,
its hands, yeah.
Yeah.
Or stealing an egg. In fact, I've got somewhere I think it's the Papo toy version of an Oviraptor. It came out after Sitipati was discovered, and that's still got an egg in its hand. However, I kind of like it because it's sort of holding it almost in a rugby stance, like it's about to sort of like grab it and then pass it back somewhat. So I feel that it needs to be painted
The
to a
whole
rugby
family
ball.
are there, like waiting for it
Yeah,
to come to them.
exactly. Yeah. But it's one of the sort of intro bits in Disney's Dinosaur. You see two Oviraptors fighting over the egg before it gets thrown into the water because that would totally keep the egg nice and safe at that point. I'm fairly certain in one of and I hate The Land Before Time. I can't stand those films. In one of them, they're obsessed with stealing eggs. There's just so many different versions where it's been portrayed in a bad light, I think.
Well, ironically, one of the bits of popular media that gets cited on this podcast a lot for its inaccuracy is actually the only bit of pop culture I can think of that has got it correct, and that's Ark.
Oh God!
In Ark, if you have an Oviraptor, your eggs any eggs that you are incubating get a boost. And get
I'll give it that
imprinting boost and a speed boost, I think it is.
Because it's basically looking after them.
Yeah. So long as you've got the Oviraptor in the room with the incubator, it keeps the eggs safe.
Now, don't quote me on this, but both of you have presumably read the Dinotopia books.
I think I've read one of them.
The main one, the original one, the big, nice, sort of very art drawn, like sketchbook one. Have you? Yeah,
I'm pretty sure I have.
I don't think I have. I'm familiar with the artwork, which is gorgeous, but I don't think I've read the book.
Yeah. Now I think, and I could be wrong on this, but I think there is an Oviraptor in that is doing the same sort of thing in Ark, in that it's working in a dinosaur nursery as basically like the
den mother,
basically running the place. Now I'm fairly, I'll have to fact check myself on that because I've got those books, but God knows where they are. But I'm fairly certain that's in there. That might be one of the very few things that's given them a good light, But those books were awesome, just in their own right. Anyway,
It's a wicked animal, though.
Yeah, they're really cool. And I think isn't that in the Jurassic World Dominion one where they have that in there as well?
Yeah, it's in the was it the prologue? It was called. So it's not in the actual movie, but they released a prologue that was set in the Cretaceous, which is a paleontology nerd's absolute worst nightmare because
it's mythological kind of multiverse Cretaceous.
Yeah.
It stresses me just thinking about it. But yes, it had an Oviraptor stealing an egg, even though it was like 2023.
I think there was I think it's the deleted scene in that, whereas an Oviraptor in the dinosaur fighting pit thing. I'm sure there's an Oviraptor in that I think it bites someone or gets bitten.
I think you're right. I think you're right. It bites someone's hand.
Yeah, and there's a Lystrasaur in that as well, which is cool.
There is, yeah.
Yeah.
There's also Dimetrodons in that film. In that cave.
I know.
Yeah.
No, I say that because of the Heart of Pangaea book that Lindsey authored.
Ah, yes, yeah. I'm just trying to not think of the Jurassic World Dominion film. That's all.
I could. I mean,
The less said about that, the better. So anyway, should we move from one chicken-like dinosaur to another very chicken-like dinosaur by doing the chicken? Because I think that
it sounds like you're about to break into some sort of dance there. The chicken.
Yeah. No. I think we're all familiar. In fact, with the chicken, for whatever reason, whether you've eaten one today, have you eaten one today?
No.
Have you had any chicken today, Lindsay?
I ate an egg.
You ate an egg?
yes,
There you go.
yes.
Okay. Yeah. I don't think I have actually. No, I did yesterday. I had a chicken burger yesterday. Anyway, that'll come into this as we go on. But I think we're all familiar. I would like to think with a war. Now, a war that Australia unfortunately lost. So far, the only war that Australia has lost on its own soil. By which I mean the horrific events of the Emu War. Everyone just give a pause there to think of that horrific fight. But a war that could have spelled the end of humans as the dominant species, in terms of, we lost a war to those emus. They could have very easily just finished the job, and Australia could be the land of the emu by now. Well, luckily, we didn't end up with that coming true. But in terms of animals that could definitely pose a real threat to our dominance, I believe there is a serious contender in the species that I am talking about. This species has an estimated 27.2 billion individuals on the planet as of 2023, and I believe it may have even jumped up to about 33 billion by 2025 standards. So there is a lot of them. That's, in fact, more than twice the population that there was in 1990, and they outnumber humans by 3.5 to 1.
Yeah.
So pray that the humble chicken doesn't rise up, because we will be in a fight for our lives. However, as globally, humans consume roughly an estimated 74 billion chickens annually for meat, and that includes both eggs and chickens raised for their meat. On average, this translates to about 202 million chickens being slaughtered each day. One might say that this delicious war has been going on for a while. So yes, we're looking at the chicken. So that's a lot of birds.
That's a lot of death.
Yeah, I haven't really focused too much on the rights side of how chickens are kept in captivity, because I wanted to keep it light. We can definitely
keep it light. You started off with just how many are killed every day. After saying that I've eaten an egg, and I feel thoroughly guilty.
Do you feel foul?
Oh.
So, species-wise, most people are familiar with the chicken in the domestic sense, but there are 4 species of these incredibly beautiful birds, and their origin dates back about 23 million years, when they split from the pheasants. And in fact, prehistorically, the genus Gallus, to which chickens belong, are found all over Eurasia. And in fact, it appears that they may have actually evolved in southeastern Europe, as opposed to the southeast of Asia, where we find them today. So we could actually look at the prehistoric chicken in a future episode. And there are a number of them. So of the 4 living species, the red jungle fowl is the one that the humble chicken is the domesticated version of. Saying that, though, there is a good number of bits of evidence to suggest that the red jungle fowl has bred with the other 3 species at some point in its domestication. So we could actually see a bit of everything in there. But we'll take a look at the 4 species themselves, because from an aviary point of view, from a captive bird point of view, they are stunning in themselves. Red jungle fowl, Gallus gallus, are found throughout India, Pakistan, eastwards across Indochina and southern China and into Malaysia, even into Singapore, the Philippines, and Indonesia. They have got probably the biggest range out of all of the members of this family. And in fact, saying that, there are 5 subspecies of red jungle fowl: Gallus gallus bankivia, Gallus gallus gallus, Gallus gallus gelabulii, Gallus gallus murphy, and Gallus gallus spadaceus. How many times can you say Gallus gallus? So the next one is the Sri Lankan jungle fowl. That's Gallus lafayettii. And can you take a guess where that one's found?
No.
Sri Lanka. Really? Oh, God.
Yeah. Sorry.
In fact, it is the national bird of Sri Lanka. It's a really, really pretty bird.
Stupid now.
So where's this animal called the Sri Lankan? Yes, from. Anyway, they're a really, really stunning bird with like a little spot on their comb that makes them really stand out. The next one, the grey jungle fowl, which is Gallus sornetii, is found in the Indian peninsula, but extends into Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, and southern Rajasthan and the Pakistani Punjab. So it's a far smaller area, sort of mostly around India. And they're probably the least colourful out of the lot. I don't think they're anywhere near as pretty as the other ones. The last one being the green jungle fowl, which is Gallus varius. Although I always look at it and think it's Gallus various chickens. That one's from Java, Bali, Lombok, Komodo, Flores, Racina, and the small islands around Java and Flores and various other parts of Indonesia. It's far more the Indonesian species of chicken. This one is the one that most closely resembles the red jungle fowl in a lot of ways, and is probably the one that is most interbred with it, certainly down into parts of Indonesia and not mainland Asia.
I think this is also the one that is historically the unluckiest.
Why is that?
Just looking at that
Living on
list of
Komodo.
places, Komodo dragons and Javan tigers.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
They're
why not?
lucky in Java where the tiger went extinct, but they've still got dragons to deal with.
And humans
Yeah.
who went,
Humans would
this
say,
tastes good.
we could Kentucky fry that.
Well, yeah. Probably the single most interesting but often unheard of aspect of chickens is actually their domestication, and just how long ago this actually happened. While older estimates suggest that the domestication process was up to 10,000 years ago, more recent research has suggested it happened anywhere between 3,500 years ago and 8,000 years ago, with one study finding radiocarbon dated bones from Ban Nok Wat in central Thailand, dating between 1650 BC and 1250 BC. So people have been eating chicken for a long time. As the earliest evidence of as domestic chickens, these remains are basically, the only thing we have to go on as the very earliest. The sort of average, though, that most people tend to settle on is around 7,000 years ago. The other quite interesting part of how chickens have become domesticated is down to their biology, but also the biology of another plant. In fact, bamboo. Now, it's actually the weird growth cycle and biology of bamboo that seems to have allowed this to have occurred. Throughout most of Southeastern Asia, there is a lot of bamboo. Aaron, you've been to Southeast Asia. You could probably attest to that.
There's a lot of bamboo.
Yeah.
I attest.
It is everywhere. It's used for, well, to this day, it's still used as cheap scaffolding in a lot of places.
Yes, it is.
So much so, in fact, that early human and hominid tools are not found quite often in parts of Asia, for the simple reason that early hominids and humans would have just used bamboo. It's far easier than the stone and flint tools that we find here in the West, because, well, we didn't have bamboo, but we certainly had a lot of flint and stone, and our ancestors would have used those. So when it came to archaeology in Southeast Asia, people were going, well, they clearly didn't know how to make stone tools. Well, why would you if you've got bamboo to do the job? So that aside, bamboo has a weird growth cycle. It goes through phases of about 50 years, where all at once the plant flowers, fruits, and dies back. Now, only for new plants to then start the cycle again and basically sprout from those seeds. But it's this abundance of fruits and seeds that basically land on the ground that allow a lot of animals to flourish. Chickens, or more specifically, jungle fowl, can go into a reproductive overdrive with an abundance of food, basically allowing them to pump out one egg a day. You've kept chickens, Aaron.
Yeah.
That's basically what they do. It takes essentially a day for that egg to pass through. But this is not always the case. Chickens are basically able to take full advantage of gluts of food, pump out as much as they possibly can, and then, boost their numbers as much as they can for leaner times. So this evidently caught the eye of early farmers who realized if the birds have a constant supply of food, they can produce a constant supply of eggs. And that led to these birds being spread far and wide until we reach today where there are over 500 breeds of chicken in all shapes and sizes. So much so, actually, there are no exact numbers on breeds of chicken.
Wow.
That is an estimate on breeds of chicken. But most of the sort of breeds that we have are the direct descendants of those jungle fowl that were bred in Southeast Asia. In fact, so much so that the Punnett Square. Do either of you remember doing Punnett squares in school, where you have it's all to do with hereditary?
Oh yes,
yeah, and you've got AA, AB, BB,
capitals and lowercase,
and you're working out hereditary. That is down to Mendelssohn, not with his peas, but down to him studying chickens. There was a big craze when the chicken became far more popular in Europe. It allowed Darwin to study them, to look at variations in a group of animals, and then use that in his study of species evolution. But it also allowed Mendelssohn to basically come up with the Punnett square as well.
Right.
So chickens have played a huge part, and there is so much more that we could have touched on. We could have just sat here and just eaten some chicken as well.
You get them from a size that will adult will rest in my hands like this, like a bantam type thing, all the way up to, I forget the names of them, but they're these giant things.
Yeah, Leghorns and Plymouth Rocks. The big American breeds are quite nice. They're really pretty birds. I quite like a bantam. They've got more attitude.
They look like they're wearing pants.
Yeah.
Yes,
I think.
I like them. Yeah.
Lindsay, do you have a
Those
favorite
are the ones
chicken?
to worry about when the chicken war breaks out.
Oh yeah, they'll be the ones.
Yeah, they got pockets in those pants.
Well, actually, that was the one final thing. The original chickens were not actually domesticated so much for their food and for their eggs. They were actually domesticated for fighting, because that was what took people's eye initially to spread them further.
Fighting. Oh, really?
Yes. So the meat and the eggs thing came secondary.
I thought the fighting was a byproduct.
No, evidently people were far more into the gambling aspect of it, I guess. So there you go. Chickens, abuse, it's all the way down. It's a dark story of poultry.
So you started off grim and you've ended grim.
Yep. Well, there you go. There's our... I've ended on a grim note there. Try and keep it light, Gareth. No, that's not happening. There's our trio of spring species for this year. But let's head on into our emails, because we've still got a major thing to sort out for this particular episode. Who was the winner of our sort of species showdown?
It's a theropod fight of its own, actually, isn't it?
Very much is. So yeah. Let's head into our emails and work that out.
Bing! You've got mail. Ooh, it's an email.
Right, well, we're into our emails for this week, and now it's finally come. It's after God knows how many weeks now that we actually had that going on. I've completely forgotten how many weeks it was that our competition has been going on to see who would be the creature for 2024, or was it 2025?
The competition's been held in 2025, but it's
2024. Yeah,
2024.
I completely forgot how those things work.
Time.
Yeah, time. It's weird. Who knows? But to reveal the answer out of who between our two final combatants, Dinocyrus versus the Hawaiian stilt owl, who has taken that spot? Lindsay, you can put us out of our misery. Who has won?
It was a deliciously underdog final, and the winner is Dinocyrus.
Very good. I mean, if anyone had money on that, congratulations. If you it was it'd be a very, very odd betting market that'd be betting on things like that. Bet you there's somewhere, some casino in the world that might have just been listening to that. So we've either made someone's day or ruined their day. But we can
Yeah. I was going to say we've already established today that gambling is more important than food and eggs. So.
Well, actually, yeah, it's true. Actually, yeah. There you go. Cockfighting with Dinocyrus. That could be interesting. That'd be horrific to watch. They tear each other to pieces. Well, I think we can now safely go on to actually asking questions again, without it being too much in the way.
Yeah.
I have this week's question for you as well. Which species, if you could have chosen the winner, just from you picking, who would it have been? Who was the one?
Just out of these two?
No. Out of all of them, who is the species that you feel was done dirty and got rid of? Who is the one that should have won it in your mind, Aaron and Lindsay? Who who was the one that you think should have won?
So I think honorable mention for the platypus for being spectacularly weird. I love it.
I think that's quite true.
I think Daeodon would be my pick. It's just
Daeodon.
brutal and ugly, and I kind of like that.
Hell pig. Yeah.
Well, considering the weekend that or the end of the week, end of the season really that the Lakers have had,
I knew you were going to go down this route.
I'm going to have a very hard time not picking the Black Mamba.
Fair enough.
Well done, Lakers.
Did they win? Did they?
Well, they've gone from like bottom of the league, kind of struggling at the start of the year with a new coach that has never coached professional basketball before, and they managed to get up to the second in the league. Then a load of injuries came. They dropped down to the sixth, and they're finishing the season going into the NBA Finals in third place, which means that we get the first round of games will be at home court. I say we as if I'm from Los Angeles.
Yeah, you're quite clearly
I'm from Devon, and I'm not. But they are my team, so yeah. I'm gonna find it very difficult to vote against Black Mamba. But if I was to put that bias aside, well, I'm not going to. So there's quite an obvious fish in there that I think would be voted for if
The
Lakers
Neon
hadn't
Tetra.
done so well. I can't say because Black Mamba.
Okay.
Black Mamba mentality.
Well, I'd like to think that my vote is obviously for Indian ringneck.
Of course.
But if I had to pick a secondary one, it would be the Panther Chameleon, because in my mind, that was what was going to be the final. It's going to be Panther Chameleon, Indian ringneck, and I don't think there would have been a bad choice in either of those.
No.
Not that there wasn't a particularly bad choice for these. It's just not the ones I think I would have gone for.
No, it was interesting. I don't know if you saw how the competition went, Lindsay, but basically, very early, the colourful animals were shunted out.
Yeah.
And it just became all the earthy, dull tones that were leading the charge in this artwork competition.
Oh, well.
Yeah. Yeah.
People like drab.
Is what it is.
People like drab. So, well, there you go. That's this week's question: is which animal do you think should have actually won it? If we could rewrite time and do it that way, that's what we'd go with. So you can put that on our Facebook page or on the comments on the YouTube video. But that leads us nicely into talking about comments. Have we got any on comments and or emails, Aaron?
Yes, we do have some interactions. We've got an email and two YouTube comments to go through to this episode. So we'll start off with YouTube. The first comment comes to us from Rose Lee 9961, and they say, "Yes, my bird dino battle in the finale has come to fruition." So someone's happy about this. For my final vote of the season, I'm going with the Dinokairos. The way that the Canada Goose inspo was applied to the body of this bizarre beast is done beautifully, and I don't know if anyone else sees it, but to me, the Dinokairos has a bit of a sass to it that I like. The whole direwolf situation that we spoke about last week is definitely a situation, to say the least. I won't talk about it too much because it starts to hurt my head when I go too deep into it. I'll say two things about it. One, it is leaving a bit of bad taste in my mouth. And two, one way that I'm sort of now viewing some of the de-extinction efforts is sort of creating a biotic robot to help the ecosystem. When Big Pumba was talking about getting to see bats, it definitely reminded me of a time when I was younger with my grandfather taking me to the yard outside and helping me to spot out bats. I've no clue what species they were since it was so long ago, and it was more of a look at the amazingness that is nature rather than a biology class. Perhaps little brown or Indiana bats. World may never know. Congrats on the new mics. Glad you guys are able to improve the podcast's life one great step at a time. Yeah, well, thank you very much for that, Rose Lee. And in fact, I believe Rose Lee is actually one of our Patreons, albeit under a different name, I think. So yeah, you have actually actively helped us to do this. So that's brilliant. Thank you. The direwolf situation, I think we won't comment on that because I think that's going to be one of my news articles for next week.
Yeah, I think it's not gonna easily go away, I think.
No, and in fact, it's probably going to influence this podcast for the next couple of weeks, at least in news and in creature features.
Gonna ride that wolf wave.
The one thing I will say about it is I still stand by the brilliance of the actual breakthrough itself, albeit it's not a direwolf. I can't understate that enough. And the anti-brilliance of the marketing for it, which just goes a bit beyond it. But one thing that has shocked me that's come out about this is that there apparently is still no peer review paper regarding this at all. But we'll leave it there because otherwise, I for one could go on a very long tangent about direwolf, non-direwolves. We'll move on to the next comment, and this one comes to us from Rennington, and they say, "Hi cupboarders, I will be casting my vote this week once again to the long-legged owl, as I believe that it is the better art, but only by a smidge." Well, your vote was a waste.
Wow, way to discourage people.
It was unfortunate. I'll reword that. Unfortunately, your vote has not been successful this
So,
time.
Aaron, when are you starting for the electoral commissions?
Yeah.
Are you voting for them? Are you?
He continues. On top of that, I have been thinking up my own speculative evolution, and I raise you the shortly after human eradication. Just Lindsay, because this would be something that maybe you could comment on in a bit. But basically, one of our followers, Big Pumba, posed to us a question about speculative evolution and what we think what species we think might rise out of the downfall of mankind. And that's what Rennington's about to talk about. So I'll continue with his comment quickly. On top of that, I have been thinking up my own speculative evolution, and I raise you that shortly after human eradication, some escaped city pets have been finding their way to more coastal areas to scavenge on the washed-up fish that choke daily on the old people's waste, yet unknowingly...
On the old people's waste?
Yes, the old...
old people waste, not old people's waste.
Yeah,
right.
Sorry. Yet unknowingly, they themselves are stalked along the beach by an invisible predator, as the descendants of the common octopus has now grown in size, mainly due to a large fillable water sac that is dragged along from its head, releasing water slowly, keeping it moist on land. Inspired by the already seen use of tools, the Neokraken, I like that name, the Neokraken. The Neokrakens are known for using empty shells as vehicles and larger bins to hide and protect them from any threats ready to strike. I've really enjoyed thinking about this the last couple of weeks, so thank you, Big Pumba. As for the birds I would like to see, this is an answer to the
top
birds.
5, yeah.
Rennington would like to see lapwings, puffins, jays, ring ouzel, and one of my favourite birds of mine, another peregrine falcon. So they're all good choices. I also love this idea of a neokraken. That is
hiding in
really, really cool. Now, before I pass over to Lindsay to give his opinion on speculative evolution of an animal that might out survive us, I did just want to bring this to your attention because it's related to Rennington. So a few weeks ago, you might remember Rennington sent us in our very first bit of
fan art.
Yeah, I was kind of not sure whether to use the term fan art, but our very first bit of cupboard artwork, which, if you'd noticed, it was just inside here the last couple of episodes because we've actually had it printed out. So just wanted to show you that it is printed out. So a big thank you to you, Rennington, for your lovely artwork that you've contributed. It really is a lovely piece. It was in there, and it's going back in there for the time being until I can find out a way of kind of giving it a nice frame and putting it somewhere behind us, as said before. But yeah, thank you very much for that. before we move on to the emails, Lindsay, what do you reckon to a species that might out-survive us and become something more than it is today?
So strange that you should ask, because this is actually something I've given some thought to because I am a complete loser. I've specifically with an eye on Britain, because I think the answer will be different throughout the world. Britain, I think, is noticeable for having a complete lack of large predators. So give it a few million years, and something which is already here is bound to take on that role. I like the thought of sort of giant predatory seagulls and rats, like animals that have taken to this sort of urban environment, which will still be there, will be gone. But the urban environments that are sort of concrete cliff faces and that kind of thing, the animals that have already adapted to that, I think, will stick around and adapt and evolve in a weird way. So I think freaky seagulls, rats, foxes, that's the kind of thing that we will not see, but may happen.
Well, there you go. See, it's the terror gull again, and your giant saber-toothed rat.
So yeah, Gareth came up with the terror gull, which is like a terror bird, seagull or herring gull, raptor kind of thing, and I came up with
a
the smiler
flightless
rat.
seagull.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Although I do like the idea of a much larger, like almost wolf-sized fox.
Well, a dire fox, dare we say? Dare we say? Floss will get on that one.
That'll really hack off
Fox.
the old fox hunters. You know,
That's not a dire fox. That's a spoon.
God. Actually, that might be the way of turning around the whole fox hunt situation. Having a wolf-sized fox come careening out at them.
A pack of foxes have learned to grow out of their solitary kind of or small family groups into super packs. African painted dogs. Yeah. Well, that was a brilliant answer, Lindsay. Thank you. I am going to move on into the emails. I'm going to nick the mouse off your lap there. And go into this email from Big Pumba, who's already been named, I think, name dropped twice by other followers this week. So he says, "Afternoon, guys. Big Pumba here. Hope you're well. I'd just like to start by saying I have no personal beef with Burnley."
Fair enough.
I'm not so sure after that comment you made last week.
They might have some beef with you now.
For the creature showdown, it's a tough one. Horrible Hand versus Owl with supermodel legs. Very hard. But I'm going to have to go Horrible Hand. Very wise, because that's the one that won. Sorry, guys, but it was a tough choice. The artwork for both is great, but a giant mallard wins it for me. I have two questions for you to throw at you this week. Firstly, there's two large bushy trees opposite our kitchen window, and with nesting season on us, there was some drama. A magpie had found the blackbird nest, and we heard the drama and went to investigate. My question is that even though the blackbirds were the ones to lose a chick, the blackbird pair, Dunnock pair, and the local small family of house sparrows all got involved in mobbing the magpie to the ground. Is this common behaviour to see all those species sort of working together?
It's certainly common for birds to mob larger predatory ones.
Also, a threat to when you like a interspecies community, and there's a threat.
They're not necessarily working together.
No.
They're working on their own behalf.
It's a common cause, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah. So yeah, it's not uncommon, is what I would say. It makes sense, even though they're not really cooperating. It makes sense for everyone in that community to gang up on this threat, really. So Big Pumba's second question, he says, second question, while sat in traffic the other day, I was thinking about elephants in must, as one does. And it got me thinking, obviously, this affected mammoths and mastodons too. But what about a totally different species in the likes of ceratopsians? Is it too outlandish to think hormones like these could have affected certain types of dinosaur? Great episode this week. I hope everyone has a great week. Kind regards, Big Pumba. Thank you very much for your email, Big Pumba. We've already answered your first question. What do you make of that second question? Because I think it's perfectly reasonable.
Yeah.
Maybe not demonstrated in the same way because we're talking about
Mammals
mammals
versus
versus
reptiles.
reptiles. Yeah, but
Hormones are basically the driver of all
yeah,
features in an animal. So
yeah.
yeah,
I would say so. And in fact, I could perfectly envision some sort of counterpart to that. Yeah. I think
Lindsay,
so.
thoughts?
Yeah, I think I would almost go as far to say that it's probable. And I don't think it would occur in exactly the same fashion, but I mean, reptiles have mating seasons and they're driven by hormones, and things like a triceratops, for example, occupied a very similar ecological niche to an elephant. The idea that it would evolve similar traits, yeah, I think that seems entirely plausible.
Yeah, well, that nicely takes us into talking about our patrons for this week, actually. So let's take that away.
Every week, we like to give a little love back by shouting out the names of our wonderful Patreon supporters.
That's right. These are the cupboard dwellers who are kind enough to support us through a monetary contribution, for which we are eternally grateful and grateful beyond words.
And those people are, of course, Fogtober, Jen Greenhall, Connie P, Chelsea McKee, Nick to Nick, Owen Cox, and Matt Geddy.
Guys, your financial contributions are actively helping us out here in the Natural History Cupboard in a myriad of ways, including developing our new studio, planning excursions and being able to go out and film on location, considering technical upgrades and actually making the jump from a solely audio-based podcast to the now growing YouTube channel. And we really can't thank you enough for that.
Now, we appreciate all of our cupboard dwellers and the support you offer us through listening, liking, sharing, and subscribing. But if you feel we've earned it and you're considering joining our Patreon, there are two options through which you can do so.
That's the Nature Nerds and the Animal Ambassador tiers, which you can find on the Patreon website or links through our social media as well, and each one having different benefits for you to enjoy.
And now back to Gareth and Erin in the studio.
And a massive thank you there to our patrons. You guys do a huge amount of work and helping the show to go further. But that pretty much brings us to the end of this week's episode, actually. So a massive thank you, Lindsay, for coming and joining us there.
No, thank you so much for having me.
That's all right.
It's
It was a pleasure.
Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah. Is there any plugs you wish to make at this point?
Where can people find you and what you're
Yes.
currently working on?
Oh, shameless plug time. Okay.
Yeah.
Predominantly, best place to find me is on Facebook. I do have TikTok now, which I still cringe every time I say that, but it's there. You can go and watch. As for my
Always
books, they're available Amazon, Apple, Barnes and Noble, wherever you would normally buy a book from online. It'll probably be there. And yeah, I suppose a little shameless plug for my latest book, Broken Voyage. It's set in a near future where climate change has taken its toll, and we follow the crew of an illegal whaling ship and desperate predators in the Arctic. They're stranded in the Arctic, and we get to see whales hunting whalers, which is fun. It's okay. It's okay to root for the whales, guys. I did.
I don't think there'd be many people who'd be rooting for the whalers, but yeah.
I did read one review because all the reviews were really good, but there was one that stood out to me that said that you paint or you create an image where a backstory for each character where it's not so black and white as these people are cruel. They've actually been led down this road by necessity. I won't say any more than that because I don't want to spoil things. But you got credit for giving a proper a backstory, interesting reasons as to why these people have been driven to their eventual fate.
Yeah, I think you could say desperation is a theme throughout the book for both the animals in question and the people, and I think that's kind of, I wanted to show this kind of parallel that desperate people do bad things and desperate animals behave in unpredictable ways.
It does seem like an exciting book.
Well, I hope so. I'm going to say that it is, because then people might buy some. To tell me.
So a massive thank you, Lindsay, for joining us. It was really good. Aaron, massive thank you as well for coming along and doing the usual.
Yeah, thank you. And just to reiterate, a massive thank you to Lindsay. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, as we said, but it's nice to have you on again. Hopefully we can get you on again in the future. Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't get the chance to geek out very often. So no, it's always appreciated. I've enjoyed it.
We one of the reasons why we wanted you to come back in is because we've kept, to the best of our abilities, we've kept quite a close kind of a close I suppose relationship, but not so much with everyone that we've met through doing this. But with you, we've probably got the closest, because we notice that you interact with our stuff, and we try and interact with your stuff, and there's a nice kind of synergy there that we like. And also,
Synergy.
I mean, you're kind of cheating at this advantage because you're an author, but you're a very good storyteller. So you're the first person that came to my mind when we were thinking of who do we get on as a guest host for the spring special.
Yeah.
And you didn't disappoint. It's been great.
No, I appreciate you thinking of me. Hopefully
It's been
not.
really good fun.
Yeah. And a massive thank you for you at home for joining us. And we'll see you next time here in the Natural History Cupboard. Bye.
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 Right, and just
So, Aaron, give us a good Easter joke or spring joke to end on.
I don't know if it's a good joke.
Okay, give us a joke.
Why are chickens so awesome?
Don't know.
Because
I'm sorry, Lindsay. It's come to this.